Hello. Can you hear me? Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? That would be amazing. Thank you. So, hi, welcome. Welcome to Paintbox Soapworks. I don't know if I'm talking into the void, so if you guys could give me some kind of feedback, that would be fantastic. So I had this lovely thing set up with Melon Streaming, and it seems that despite all of my attempts to get everything set up so that I could do fancy dancy screen sharing with you, I borked something, so you're stuck looking at my face for the next 3 hours. We'll see. We'll see if I can figure out how to do some screen sharing so that we can look in some good stuff. Hello, Jessica. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, for those of you who have been with me for a while, locally especially, the weekend before Thanksgiving is always my annual Paintbox Soapworks holiday open house, where I take over usually my mother's house, sometimes a local micro movie theater named Small Star. Shout out to Patty Stirk. And I drag my entire inventory out and set it up, and everybody locally gets to have an in-person shopping experience. They get to hang out with me. We get to have fancy food and drinks and pinkies out and the whole nine. Obviously, this year is a little bit different. It's an understatement. You know, I feel like those sort of caveats and those sort of phrasings, you know, in these uncertain times and whatnot, that's going to be some sort of like massive trigger for all of us in the coming years. We're going to have to come up with a different euphemism, I think, to help us all feel a little bit better about things. But needless to say, this year I can't do in-person shows. I mean, I can, but the beauty of an in-person show is being able to, among many other things, smell and try everything that I make, and stick your nose in little sample cups and pass sample cups down the line so that your friends can also smell them. And I feel like the absolute last thing we need right now is a room full of people passing the same little cup around and sticking our noses into it. So I held out hope that I was going to figure out a way that we could do the open house this year, but I just couldn't do it to all of you. As much as I wanted to see everybody, I couldn't put everybody at risk like that. So here we are. So you get all of the other stuff besides the actual smelling and shopping and all that kind of stuff. So you get me for the next 3 hours, and I'm going to be right up front with you. This is not my strong suit. I came up with this idea less than a week ago. Oh, I miss your face too, Kate. Hi, Patrick. Oh, it's Patty. I can't read. I'm sorry. I came up with this idea less than a week ago. Don't really know what I was thinking. Those of you who know me in person know that I am a very well disguised introvert when it comes to the business end of things. When I can, thank you, Carrie. When I'm out and talking about my work and what I do, I can front like a really good, competent extrovert. I am not that. So talking to a screen for 3 hours is going to be a challenge for me to try and keep things interesting for everybody who's hanging out for the duration. If you're hanging out for the duration, God bless you. What are you doing? But no, I'm very glad that you are here. So I will be taking regular breaks, probably about every half hour, 45 minutes, just to step away for 5 or 10 minutes. save my voice, catch my breath, get something to drink, that sort of thing. But in the meantime, we've got a lot of time to fill today, which is a good thing. So I'm going to really get all over the place today. I'm going to talk about business stuff, and I'm going to talk about scent development, and I'm going to talk about just running small businesses and what running a small business in these uncertain times is, what that's like right now, some of the struggles and challenges that may not be immediately obvious to people who don't run small businesses. We're going to do some kind of casual scent stories. There are going to be some dramatic readings because a lot of my scents are derived from literature, among other things. So I went digging through my pile of books. So we're going to have some readings. It's going to be a good time. And then we'll talk about larger organizational things, like how do I, one woman, two hands, how have I done this? And I was hoping to try and rope some other people into being on screen with me. During one of my breaks, I'm going to see if I can still figure that out. Like I said, having to pivot very quickly on the platform, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to rope in other people without dragging you all to a completely different link, which is not my goal. My goal is for you guys to be able to camp out here, and I'll worry about the technical stuff on the back end. But yeah, we'll talk about the financial end of running a business and what being a sole proprietor actually looks like in terms of the finances, and different things that I've been able to do over the years to kind of help the business along. There are a lot of tools out there for micro business and sole proprietors that, I don't know, I feel like I stumbled upon. It wasn't necessarily because it was particularly well advertised or well posted or, well thought out, just, came across things one day. So I think we'll talk about that a little bit. And what else? We'll talk about the year to come, what 2021 might look like for Paintbox Soapworks and things that you guys can look forward to seeing. I'm not going to say kind of gross, but kind of gross. And we might do some product spotlights. I got a lot of questions over the year in my inboxes about how do I use certain products, what would you recommend for things, that sort of thing. So I might pull a couple of things off the shelf, and we can talk a little bit about how I formulated things and, kind of different uses that I've discovered over the years for my products, and also that y'all have shared with me over the years. I'm going to talk about who has inspired me over the years. There's going to be some shout outs to some very important people who have been here. I promise I'm going to try not to swing in my chair as much, but yeah. I'm going to try not to make you seasick by doing that. So yeah, we'll do some readings. We'll poke around. Yeah, and then most importantly, I see lots of you using the chat on the side, which is magnificent. Thank you so much. That means that I am not talking into the darkness, which I really appreciate. But if you have questions, and this is, we're calling this an AMA and Ask Me Anything. I'd like, seriously, ask me anything. Those of you who have met me in real life know that despite my introvert ways, I don't have much of a personal filter when it comes to talking about my personal life and kind of the harder, stickier things about, being a human being. So yeah, have at it. Knock yourselves out. Ask me stupid questions, ask me weird questions, ask me hard questions. And I'm going to try and keep things reasonably organized so that I'm not rabbiting all over the place. So if you type in a question and I don't get to it right away, trust that I hear it and I see it, and I'm sitting on it until we can kind of work on that whole area all at once. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. I think that's a good way to do it. So, setting up the open house is all, yes, starts off as soap talk, turns into a group therapy. Kate, it's like you know me. It's like what we've done. Yeah. So, it's been a wild year. I'm just going to put that out there. And wild both personally and, environmentally, and specifically from the business. And I haven't had much time to really sit and reflect on how much has changed and how different things are. But I want you all to know that despite everything being different, there are certain things that remain the same. And one of the things that has remained the same is that no matter how much advanced planning that I do, I never end up eating enough on the day of my open house. So the second before I went live, I was shoveling pimento cheese into my face and crackers and chugging down coffee. So I'm going to have some more coffee. So yeah, lest you think that having done this for, I think we're on 10 years now, because I'm pretty sure my first holiday open house was 2010. Holy crap. Yes. So 10 years, and I still am incapable of feeding myself properly on open house day. So lest y'all think that, there's some great mystery, and eventually you do turn into a grown up and learn how to, actually take care of yourself and do responsible things. And yeah, yes, Jessica, you did come to the first one. I remember that you and Kit brought your bikes down, and my parents were charmed and delighted by you. Yeah, that was amazing. So the very first year I was in business, I did a spring open house, I seem to remember. And so why don't we start with that? Does that sound like a good place to start? We'll kind of go back in the day for those of you who weren't here at the very beginning, and sort of sketch out how this happens now. Amy, I know that you're not here right now, and I know that you did ask to hear kind of the backstory of the business. So I think probably what I will do is I will do kind of round one now, and then we'll do round two a little bit later on in the afternoon, both for you and anybody else who didn't make it right away to the first half of the session. All right. So, in the beginning, there's me at a desk job. My background is eccentric in terms of my employment. I dropped out of college and started washing dishes at a local deli and working at the hospital, which we now live across the street from because this is the kind of town that I live in. And that led to several years of food industry work. And then I got siphoned off into, anybody remember Borders Bookstore? Borders Books and Music. That was an excellent place. That was back in the day when people actually had more than one bookstore chain to pick from. And this was pre-Amazon, if y'all can believe that. So I worked for Borders for a long time. That is how I met my husband, Jesse. He was the cute guy in music, and I was apparently a cute girl in the cafe. I had no idea. But we both worked for Borders. We both moved out to Chicago with our Borders jobs. I went on to culinary school because despite all my years in the food industry, I wanted to get back to that after I left Borders, but I wanted to do it with a little bit more focus. So I went to a baking and pastry program at Cooking and Hospitality Institute of Chicago, which is now defunct, which seems to be a pattern in my life. 2 of my 3 alma maters are now defunct. Kind of a neat trick. And after several years of baking and pastry, I ended up working for a really toxic human being for a couple of weeks. I had left a tremendous crew at a now defunct restaurant called Cafe Absinthe in Chicago. And that was where I was executive pastry chef for several years. It was a magnificent crew of people. And, you have those jobs where it's a job, whatever. You go in, you come out, there are a couple of people you connect with. That was one of those jobs that I'm in touch with nearly everyone that I worked with. And I can say categorically that that job and those people are responsible for who I am today and my ability to do the work that I am doing now. Working in the food industry is it's thankless in a lot of ways. You're never really going to get rich in the food industry, and you will break your body in the food industry. But what the food industry does do is it teaches you how to be organized. It teaches you how to be self-reliant, and it also teaches you how to think collectively. When you're working in a professional kitchen, you are responsible for handling your own shit, but you are also responsible for making sure that the ship as a whole functions. And so if you drop any part of your ball, somebody else has to pick that up. And that's not something that you do to each other in the food industry when you've been in it for a while. So that level of, if you forget something, if you screw something up, if you drop something, if you burn something, whatever, you have to pick up and make it right away. And I think that's really, at the end of the day, what led me to be able to do what I do now. So working in the food industry, working for Cafe Absinthe, loving my guys. Our head chef took an opportunity and moved on. And we got ourselves a new executive chef. Really didn't click with him right away. So I started looking for a new position. Found a position out in the suburbs of Chicago. And I'm just going to tell you this right now. If you go and you interview for a job or any experience in life, and on paper it looks like a good idea, and you get into the situation and all of your nope alarms are going off, pay attention to that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should leave, but definitely pay attention to what your gut is telling you. I toughed it out for a couple of weeks, and everything in my gut was screaming to get out of that situation. So that is the one and only time that I have ever walked off a job. I am not proud of it. I am still slightly haunted by that experience. It was a very traumatic experience. But yeah, so I walked off that job and was unemployed for a couple of months. I don't do well with unemployment. I don't do well not working. And when my husband's company was looking for someone to run the front desk, I thought, you know what? I can do that. You know, if it means that I can get out of this house and stop hating my life for 5 minutes. So I went and took a front desk job. I'd never had a desk job before. And the transition from food service to a desk job was frankly fairly hilarious. Um, for the first 6 to 9 months, it really just felt like I was in the movie Office Space. It felt like nothing was quite real because it was an office job. You know, there's nothing to physically show for the work that you do at the end of the day. So it was really bizarre to have this completely abstract work that I was doing. And the things that people would get upset about in the office were baffling to me, because, you know, okay, you're freaking out because something didn't print right, so go fix the printer. You're freaking out because somebody didn't, you know, fill out their end of the proverbial TPS report on time, so go tell them to fill it out. What's the problem here? So, yeah, that was a good time. But when I moved from front desk up into accounts management, that was where that's the second half of why I can do what I do. That's where I learned customer service, and not like customer service because, you know, I worked in retail, I worked in food service. So, you know, I knew how to smile and make nice at people, and kind of that level of customer service. What I learned at the desk job was how to coach my clients and my customers, and how to make what I want them to do feel like something that they want to do themselves. It was about setting up systems so that the process was easy, it was intuitive, and it got them what they wanted. So, you know, I got used to getting yelled at on the phone, because anytime you have a desk job, you're going to get yelled at on the phone at some point. So, I was used to getting yelled at in person, but yelled at over the phone was like a whole different thing. So the desk job really helped me. It helped me get organized in a different way. You know, I was good at organizing stuff and things. The desk job made me be more organized mentally. It also really got me over myself in terms of the stuff that feels like busy work but isn't actually busy work. You know, we had a lot of copywriting to do, and I hated copywriting. I hated it with a passion. You know, it's taking like MLS remarks and just rewriting them like 5 different times in 5 different fields. It was awful. I hated it. I wanted to peel my own skin off. But it was a part of the job that really needed to be done. And it took me, I will be frank, it took me several years to be okay with that. But getting to the point where I realized that all of the work that we do within our individual jobs, it is all of it's important. All of it needs to be done. You know, that was super helpful. That desk job is what enabled us to move from Chicago and move back home, because at this point, the internet was, you know, robust enough that telecommuting was something that people were starting to be able to do. And so when we moved back to Pennsylvania, my husband and I both brought our jobs with us, which was really kind of great because we could come back here and buy a house and not have to worry about looking for employment. it was a pretty good deal. At that point, I had been at the desk job for at least 6 years, and I had had a baby, and I was raising a kid, and 6.5 to 7 years is a really long time for me to have sat on my butt at a desk job. And I was really starting to feel kind of that soul crushing ennui of sitting on my butt all day. I'm a deeply creative person, and I always do better when I have some sort of like physical making, doing element to the bulk of my life. And so, yeah, after about 7 years, I was really starting to get pretty low. And so that's when the bee pallors came in. So for those of you who are not in the circle, there is a magnificent perfume company out in California called the Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. And back in the earlier days of the internet, I joined the online forum for perfume fans. And it sounds a little precious, like, okay, you're getting on. Oh yeah, Kate, absolutely represent. Good Lord, I wouldn't be here without Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. I want to make that front and center. Beth Burial is responsible for all of this. But specifically, the forum is responsible for all of this. So being kind of lonely and isolated at my desk job, I can't really get out and socialize. So I learned how to socialize on the internet. And I refer to my group as my imaginary internet friends. And my imaginary internet friends have really been at the heart of my development into a fully fledged human being. I was a weirdo growing up. Imagine that. Go figure. And so I have a handful of friends, and they get me in kind of like certain compartments. But it wasn't until I started really making friends with people on the internet that I realized that I could meet people who get me as a full human being. And so being there and being in the virtual presence of a group of predominantly but not exclusively women who were willing to take time out for each other, check in on each other, be there as not just kind of sugary, syrupy cheerleaders, but really getting to the heart of what makes you you and celebrating that part of you. It was a huge community. I think we had 8,000 members when I joined, which is, that's spectacularly huge for then. I honestly don't know if anybody knows how many we're up to on the forums. I don't really go on the forums anymore because I don't have time anymore. But, out of that 8,000 or whoever, there was a lovely collection of probably about 100, 150 of us that really gelled into a little subsection. And that would be the BPAL Guspers, the great unhijackable sleepover party. Is that what we stand for? I can't remember now. But anyway, so that was my crew. Those were my people. I do want to take a sidestep and also include my bust girls. I don't know if y'all remember. Yes, sleepover party thread. Thank you, Shelley. If you all know about the feminist magazine Bust, They also had a reader forum back in the day. My bus girls, those are my ride or dies. I mean, my BPALers are as well, but my busty girls got me through early motherhood and pregnancy and all that kind of stuff. And they have been tremendous influence in a very different kind of way, but also there. So I've got these like two delightful online groups of women really at my back. And so the whole soap thing. So you start out, and we were all fans of um, Black Phoenix Black Phoenix Alchemy Labs perfumes, which take a hot minute. Go and Google it if you don't know what it is. Beth makes just tremendous perfume, and I am not a perfume person. Up until I hit BPAL, I think the last perfume I had worn with any kind of regularity might have been Halston. And I think I got a bottle maybe for like my 17th or 18th birthday. And I had a little tiny vial of China Rain oil that I got from a head shop up in Amherst, Mass. And I used to slather myself with that. And other than that, I wasn't a perfume girl, because you work in the food industry. There is no point in wearing perfume, because you're just going to come home smelling like freaking buttercream and bacon grease, which, let me tell you, sounds like a nice idea until you marinate in it all the time. True story. That's why I don't do a lot of really foodie scents in the Paintbox Soapworks line, but anyway, so I hadn't done perfume much, but I believe it was Turbogen from the Bust forums who mentioned kind of casually at one point, oh, I found this really cool perfume company. You should go and check it out. And, I'm stuck at the desk job. I got lots of time to kill on my breaks, and sometimes not on my breaks. So I went poking in, and I fell into this world where perfume wasn't just something that you spritzed on to smell nice for boys. This was perfume as armor. This was perfume as like cosplay. This was perfume as like ambiance, and just, it was a whole different level of thinking about smells and what smells meant and what smells could do for you as someone wearing them, and also as someone smelling them out in the world. So yeah, I went down the rabbit hole and ordered myself an imp pack. Imps are the little tiny 1 ml vials that BPAL offers. They're a great gateway. Go get yourself an imp pack. And fell down the rabbit hole of the forums fairly quickly, because one of the beauties of the forums is that everybody who belongs to the forum, when they get a new BPAL, will go in and review that perfume. So if you have something that you've got on your eye on, you can go and see what thousands of other people have had to say about this. And that's where you learn about things like top notes, bottom notes. You learn about skin chemistry and what skin chemistry can do to a perfume. Sometimes it's nice things, sometimes it's not nice things. And so from there, you branch out into all of the other threads within the forum. And that's where you start to meet people. And I think much like fan fiction, I think that internet-based forum relationships are very frequently discounted, because it's a lot of women, particularly in terms of, these sort of circles. And it's it's a way to express oneself, and it's a way to connect with other people that is completely contrary to, I think, the way that women have been traditionally coached to relate to each other and to create things. I know it's a little heavy, it's a little big, but I really think that our kind of societal like eye rolling at online relationships really discounts the power that these relationships can have for us. You know, on the boards, I watched people coach each other and help each other in ways that were so frank and so intimate and so transparent and trusting. Um, it was, I don't know, it was just such a moving and important experience for me to be part of that group. And I'm looking through the names that are coming up in the live chat right now and get a little misty because it's occurring to me that a lot of you were there at the very, very beginning of all of this for me. And damn it, you're all still here. And that's what I'm talking about. That these are not just sort of, fleeting friendships that come and go. These are relationships that abide over a decade in some cases. So, anyway, so that's my rant on how important online friendships are. So, we're going to talk about these online friendships in particular. Because, yes, Jessica, here we go. Nice transition. Switch. So, y'all are familiar with things like Secret Santa and that sort of thing. Well, in the BPAL world, which tends to be heavily witchy oriented, we do a thing called Switch Witch. And I do need to give a very big shout out to our Switch Witch coordinators over the years. This is a massive and frankly sometimes thankless project of people signing up to be secret gift giving witches to other people on the internet. I think we usually, when I was doing Switch Witch, we usually had somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 100 participants. And yes, Coldy, there we go. Coldy was one of the great minds behind Switch Witch. She put in so much work on that. So yeah, you've got 100 people signing up for this thing. And then this delightfully long and juicy questionnaire where you tell all about yourself, about your interests, about your likes, your dislikes, and that information gets shared with a random other member of the Switch Witch community. They then in turn take that information and figure out how best to shower you with love and gifts and surprises for the duration of the Switch Witch season, which, if I remember, it was usually about a month. And we had a whole sub forum devoted to where you could go and talk about Switch Witch. You could talk about, just in general terms, what you were excited about. You could answer even more specific and bizarre questions about yourself and about what you wanted. There were threads for posting when you receive something from your Switch Witch. So you would take a picture of it or you would scan it or whatever so that your Switch Witch, who was lurking anonymously somewhere in the group, would know that whatever they sent had been received. Inevitably, over the course of a Switch Witch season, weird in-jokes surface. It's never a predetermined theme, but there always seems to be some weirdo theme that everybody in Switch Witch kind of cottons onto. Sometimes it's, oh God, yeah, Kate, you're right. That was sort of an unboxing thing. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's an unboxing video or unboxing set of photographs, usually. But yeah, there was always some kind of bizarre in joke on the Switch Witch forums. And so one year we had been talking in a related kind of a separate forum about what to do with BPAL perfumes and other perfume oils in general. If they didn't work with your skin chemistry, but you still like the smell of them. So for those of you who aren't really big into perfume oils, they work very differently on the skin than alcohol-based, more commercial perfumes do. And your skin chemistry can do sometimes really interesting and beautiful things, and sometimes really terrible and awful things to certain notes in the perfume oils. I cannot wear aquatic perfume oils because they end up smelling like sort of warm mayonnaise. It's terrible. Out of the bottle, it smells amazing. On me, I smell like an old tuna sandwich. It's awful. So we had been talking about different things that you could do, putting it in your hair, putting a few drops on a hanky and throwing it in the dryer cycles to scent your laundry, that sort of thing. And one of the things that came up was using BPAL in soap. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, using BPAL in soap is a terrible idea because it will be the single most expensive bar of soap you ever make in your entire life. But, it's what we did. So I decided that I wanted to try doing some BPAL soaps, and I went online and I ordered some soap base. There's lots of different glycerin soap bases that you can get. The kind that you get at the craft store at like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or wherever, it's fine, but it tends to be all detergent based and all surfactant based. It's not actually really soap. I went online and I found a company out on the West Coast. Shout out to SFIC. They make my glycerin soap base. It's the only soap base I use. Is the only soap base I ever use. If they ever close down, that's it for the business because nobody else makes glycerin soap like they do. It's actual real live soap that they then treat with glycerin and propylene glycol. And you're right. Yeah. And so I ordered from another West Coast company that does soap supplies. Shout out to Brambleberry Soap Supply out in Bellingham, Washington. They were the very first company that I ordered soap supplies from. I still order from them 10 years later. And so I ordered a little bit of soap base. And while I was there, I went tripping through the soap fragrance oils. Now, these are uncut fragrance oils. This is the kind of thing that you would dilute down to put into a product. And they had a couple of weird looking ones. I thought, all right, I'll try some stuff. During Switch Witch, the session where all of this starts to happen, we had 3 in-jokes. The first in-joke was beets. I don't know why. I can't remember. Can anyone remember where the heck beets came from? All I know is all of a sudden everybody had little avatars and little icons in their footers about beets. The second theme was Fantasticake. Somehow we got talking about how cake is cake, but if you add booze, it becomes Fantasticake. There's definitely a cake and a rum thing. Yeah, I know this is like ancient history. At some point when I have got all the time in the world, I'll go dig back through the forums and see if I can figure out the true origins of all of these things. So we've got beets, we've got Fantasticake, and we've got everything going to pants, which is a British term. And when things go to pants, it means everything just goes to hell. Everything's just shot to pieces. How are you feeling today? Oh, everything's just pants. So beets, fantastic cake, and pants. So I got my soap base, and I played around with my bee pal, and I made a couple of very tiny, pretty okay smelling bars of soap. It was very clear that perfume oil isn't. You have to use so much in order to get your soap to smell like anything. It starts to do weird things to the texture of the soap. They were like gummy and weird. It was terrible. But the fragrance oils that I had gotten from Brambleberry, those actually turned out pretty good. I was pretty excited about those. So when Switch Witch really got going, I thought, maybe I'll do something fun. And so I made 3 different soaps, and I did them in the Wilton Brownie Bite flexible silicone pan that I had picked up at the craft store. A little 1.5 by 1.5 inch rounded corner little square. They were like little cute little tablety things. They were so great. And I put an offer up on the Switch Witch board that, hey, if you would like a special treat sent to your witchy, the recipient, I'll send them a little something, because that's what you do when you have imaginary friends on the internet. If you make a thing, you take that thing and you cut it into little pieces and you mail it all over the world to these people who you've never met, but who mean so much to you. So that's what I did. Oh, Jennifer, it's okay. You can watch Star Trek. I don't mind. So yeah, I sent out this trio of soaps, and this is where Beat It, Fantastic Cake, and Pants Relief Elixir were born, in little tiny sample soaps that I sent out to my witchies. And I think I also did there was a zucchini flower fragrance oil that I had, and I did a couple of tablets of that too, but mostly it was just the 3 Switch Witch appropriate soaps. So I had such a good time putting them together and wrapped them all up, sent them all out. And everybody loved them. And then people started asking me what else I was going to do. And I said, what do you mean? I just, no, this is just a Switch Witch thing, whatever. And then somebody else said, well, but what if I want more of these? I'll happily make you more of those. And over the course of, it was probably 6 to 8 months, there was a gentle but mountingly firm campaign to get me to make more soap. And I did a couple other batches, and I sent them out to people, and I was enjoying it because it got me away from my desk. I would go down to the kitchen and I would soap on my breaks. So I'm doing my desk job during the day, and then I get a 15-minute break, and I can run down and I can microwave some soap base real quick, and I can pour a couple more little tiny bars of soap. And I was enjoying that. I had forgotten kind of what that was like to have kind of that creative maker project kind of thing in my life. And so yeah, I started making a little bit more soap. And then somebody, I think it was Sherry. Sherry is the bee paler in my mind, who I ultimately blame her for this. Somebody said you should open an Etsy store. And for my entire adult life, I have said, I don't want to be self-employed. I don't want to, I just want to be able to like log out and go home. But Etsy seemed like, oh, okay, this is easy. This is like plug and play. I can set up a little tiny something so that if people really want to buy a little bit more soap, they can, whatever. And so I think it was probably August. I decided that I was going to start an Etsy store. Um, for whatever reason, and I think some of it is the food service background, but a lot of it is just my desire for my desire to avoid surprises. Um, when I set up my Etsy store, I went into it setting everything up like it was going to be an actual real live air quotes business. Um, I went and did the paperwork with the state. I went and got my sales tax license, all that kind of stuff, because I didn't want to get 6 months into it. And then, it turns out I should have done something and I'm getting fines for it and crap. I didn't want to do that. And I thought, all right, I'll do the research and I'll set this thing up properly. And so August through December, that's what I did. I went and set up the business, got everything sorted. I did a lot more test batching. A lot of you got more test batches in the mail. And I launched in January of 2010. And I launched with, I think, five original scents and just soap. And yeah. Oh, and the soap boxes, of course. So, yeah, because my original thought, here, I'll pull these up for you. For those of you, I mean, y'all know what these things are, but I'll just put them up anyway. So there's the original. There's a little soap tablet. I hate my camera. Here we go. Okay. So, little 1.5 inch thing. It's hard to package those, just kind of throwing them in randomly. So I was thinking about different ways that I could sell the little soaps without it turning into like, here's a 50-cent sale, that sort of thing. So I played around for a long time with the idea of squares because it's a little, it's a little square soap. There you go. And so I was looking at what am I going to call my business? And I had all kinds of weird stuff like Square One soaps and, Square makes a circle soaps and all kinds of stuff. And how to package these little square things in a way that would be kind of cute and giftable and easy to ship and that would arrive so that the soaps didn't arrive damaged. And one night I was lying in bed, and this was an era that I had a little bit of insomnia, which actually wasn't terrible because I got a lot of really good thinking done during that era. And I'm lying there awake at night, and I'm thinking about the soap, and I'm thinking about just kind of like all the stuff that I've done over the years and things that I enjoyed. And I did a lot of art classes when I was in high school, and I really liked painting. And at some point, everything fused together. I lay there in bed in the middle of the night, like, oh my God, I know what this is. This is a box of paints. Because look, if I put it in a little box, it looks like a box of paints. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So that's where Paintbox Soapworks came from. Whew, that was a long way to get there. And my original plan had just been to do the little teeny tiny soaps. That's all I was interested in doing. And I try to think, Shelly, for some reason, I think it was you. In my head, I think you were the one who asked if I would do bigger bars, because the little tablets are really fun. They're great for travel. They're great for gifting. They're great if you have, kind of short attention span soap theater. Shelley, was it you who asked for full-size soap bars? I don't know. In my head, it's always been you. Take credit for it. I don't know. So, no, no, it wasn't you. Okay. All right. I'll have to think some more about who that might have been. But anyway, I managed to find soap molds that had that same nice little rounded corner square thing. So that turned into kind of an ongoing motif for me, which was nice. I started to feel like I was having some kind of like continuity, some sort of branding kind of thing. Fair copying. I have absolutely no marketing background, no business background, never took any business classes, none of this. So I am like seat of my pantsing this. But I'm starting to see how, okay, this could look like a thing. This could look like something that a grown-up did. And so I launched in January of 2010, and I had the paint box that you could get with the mini soaps, and then I had the big soap bars, and that was it. That was all I was interested in doing. Just the soap. That's it. And those of you who know me well have heard this story several times, but I'm going to repeat it for those who don't know. That when you start a business on Etsy, especially at that point in kind of Etsy's growth cycle, there were a lot of soap makers on Etsy. And I went into it really feeling like, all right, this is going to be something. It's just an easy way for my friends to order soap from me when they want to buy soap. It's here. I'll just make it whenever they order it. Easy peasy. It won't amount to much of anything, but it'll make life easier for my bee-pallers, who want soap. And I did $500 in sales my first month. That is obscene. At least it was in that era of Etsy. Most Etsy shops, if you get a sale within your first 3 months, a single sale within your first 3 months, you should consider it kind of a win. And all my bee-pallers, bless your cotton socks, came out and supported me that first month and blew the doors off and made me hustle. Because when you start a business and you think, okay, this is just going to be a casual thing, you don't really put a lot of infrastructure into things. And you think, oh, I'll just do this whenever I have time. And suddenly I have this big influx of orders. And I realized very quickly, I need to get my act together. I need to get my shit organized. And so that first couple of months, going from 0 to 60 very quickly, made me put in place systems of organization and systems of just kind of managing workflow that I still use now. And it really are the only reason that I have been able to have the level of growth that I have. So at that point, I was still working my full-time job. About a year and a half later, the full-time job was in real estate advertising and print media. So kind of, a hybrid of, basically we made sure that the real estate agents and the newspaper offices never actually had to talk to each other in order to place a print ad in the newspaper, which it turns out is a really good thing, because those are two parties that can't really talk very well to each other. We help them not have to talk to each other. This was about the time that the real estate market was crashing post-bubble. And it was also the time where print media, advertising, and newspapers were really starting to crash and burn. And so my day job was suddenly getting a lot more tenuous, just as this little soap hobby was starting to look like it was going to be an actual thing. So I was able to go part time at the desk job, which meant that nobody had to lose their job because they were talking about laying people off. And I volunteered to go part time. And about a year and a bit after that, we had lost more clients and they were starting to talk about having to lay people off. And I said, you know what? I think I can probably go now. So that that initial burst of support that I got from the bee pallers is what put in motion and gave me the momentum so that 3 years later I was able to quit my day job and soap full time. And I have been soaping full time and then some ever since. And it's all your fault. So there it is. So there's oh my God, that was way longer than it needed to be. Bless you all for still hanging around and listening to me. So it's 5 after 2. So if you guys are cool, I'm gonna take like a 10-minute break. And yeah, I don't really know how I'm gonna take a break. So if you can bear with me for a minute, I'm going to see if there's, I do love you when I'm exhausted, Shelly. Thank you. I love you all the time, but especially when I'm exhausted. I'm going to see if I can change up my screen so that you guys have something to look at besides my background for a minute. And we're going to go from there. So I will see you guys, let's say 2:15 Eastern time. I'll be back and put in the chat what you want me to talk about next. Like I said, I've got a ton of stuff here that I can talk about. So, but if you guys have something in particular that you want to talk about when I come back, just let me know. Okay. Thanks, guys. Hey, and we're back. That was quick pimento cheese and crackers break. Yeah, you know. sometimes you gotta take a minute. So anyway, so here we are. So we just finished up a truly exhaustive recounting of how this business got started. Y'all are very patient. Shelly, thank you. You're still here. You're so sweet. So, all right. Yes, indeed, as one does, Cass. So, what would we like to do next? Do we want to do some products? Can I read some stuff to you? Would you like a story? Do you want to talk about what's coming up for the year? Yeah, I hope that you're multitasking. Seriously, everybody, don't make this the only thing that you do today. As a chronic multitasker myself, it would be the greatest honor if you were doing at least 2 other things while watching this. So, yeah. Anybody? Right on. Well, okay, then let's, I went digging around in the attic this morning to pull out a couple of things. As you know, a lot of my scents come from a whole myriad of inspirations. But I do pull from literature a lot. And I thought it was fitting that I share with you the source material for what is probably, if not the top seller ever, pretty close to the top seller ever, for Paintbox Soapworks. And that is White Snow, Bright Snow. That White Snow, Bright Snow was in my very first Yuletide and holiday lineup back in 2010. And I have made it almost every year. I took a break for a couple of years because I needed a break for sure. And now, unfortunately, the main fragrance oil component of that blend, the thing that really makes White Snow, Bright Snow smell like White Snow, Bright Snow and not like other things, is no longer available. I have tried my best to try and get it back because I use it in several other things as well, but it is gone. And that is I think that's one of the hardest parts of this business is, in the food industry, if, one of your suppliers discontinues the kind of flour that you were using, you can usually find somebody else who distributes it. In the fragrance oil world, generally, if a supplier discontinues a fragrance oil, unless it's a duplication of like a Yankee Candle or a Bath and Body Works kind of thing, it is very rare to find another supplier that carries the same thing. What up, Allison Jean? Hello, Allison Jean, who knew me way back when I used to wake her up to come to class on time. Hi. So anyway, yeah. So when fragrance oils get discontinued, I've gotten a lot better over the years because I've been burned enough times that if there's a particular component that I am really in love with and that is really, really unique and totally different than anything that I've been able to find at other suppliers, I tend to stock up on it like a crazy person, because there have been enough times over the years where I have gone to reorder something that was available last month and suddenly it's gone. So I did that with the fragrance oil for White Snow, Bright Snow. and because I knew it was getting discontinued, and burned through my stock of it. And I found another company who looked like they were going to start carrying it, ordered a sample. It was the same. Everything was great. And then I went back to order it in bulk, and it was gone, and they had no plans of bringing it back. It was super frustrating. So, but anyway, so that's the demise of White Snow, Bright Snow. But it was based on, let's see, this is the thing that I don't like about YouTube, is that everything is reversed. So y'all get to read it backwards. This is the original book that it was based on. It's called White Snow, Bright Snow by Alvin Tressel. This was, I believe this was 1940s. This is an old Scholastic copy. So it doesn't, 1947. This was originally published. And we picked this up used at a great little bookstore in Chicago. And I would read this to our son. I'm going to call him SB on here because he's 14 now, and I like him to have some anonymity. SB is short for Small Bear. I used to read it to SB all the time, and it's a really delightful little storybook, just about the day when the snow comes. And it's just one of those really nice little kind of encapsulated moments. So I'm going to read that to you right now. So everybody settle in, get your cocoa, get your chicky nuggies, settle in. We're going to read a story. Okay? White Snow, Bright Snow by Alvin Tressel. Softly, gently, in the secret night, down from the north came the quiet white. Drifting, sifting, silent flight, softly, gently, in the secret night. White snow, bright snow, smooth and deep. Light snow, night snow, quiet as sleep. Down, down, without a sound. Down, down, to the frozen ground. Covering roads and hiding fences. Sifting in cracks and filling up trenches. Millions of snowflakes, tiny and light. Softly, gently, in the secret night. The postman said it looked like snow. The farmer said it smelled like snow. The policeman said it felt like snow, and his wife said her big toe hurt, and that always meant snow. Even the rabbits knew it and scurried around in the dead leaves, while the children watched the low gray sky, waiting for the first snowflake to fall. Then, just when no one was looking, it came. 1 flake, 2 flakes, 5, 8, 10, and then suddenly the air was filled with soft, powdery snowflakes, whispering quietly as they sifted down. The postman put on his rubbers. The farmer went to the barn for a snow shovel. The policeman buttoned up his coat. His wife made sure she had cough mixture in the medicine cabinet. But the children laughed and danced, trying to catch the lacy snowflakes on their tongues, while the rabbits hid in their warm burrows under the ground. Faster and faster came the tiny snowflakes, and the brown earth turned white. Fields and stone walls, roads and gutters, lawns and sidewalks, all were buried under the soft white snow. It covered the roofs of houses and piled on top of chimneys. It filled the cold tree branches with great white blossoms. And when night came, icy cold snowflakes sparkled in the light of the street lamps. The postman slipped and fell into a snowbank. The farmer dug a path from his house to the barn. The policeman got his feet wet and had to soak them in a tub of hot water. His wife put a mustard plaster on his chest so he wouldn't catch cold. The rabbits stirred in their sleep, deep in their warm burrows under the ground, under the snow. And the children dreamed of snow houses and snowmen as they slept in their snug beds under the rooftops, under the snow. Silently, the frost made pictures of ice ferns on the window panes. Then, without a sound, just when everybody was asleep, the snow stopped, and bright stars filled the night. In the morning, a clear blue sky was overhead, and blue shadows hid in all the corners. Automobiles looked like big fat raisins buried in snowdrifts. Houses crouched together, their windows peeking out from under great white eyebrows. Even the church steeple wore a pointed cap on its top. The postman put away his rubbers and took out his high boots. The farmer milked his cows in a barn filled with bright snowlight. The policeman had a chill and stayed in bed. His wife sat in a rocker and knitted a long woolen scarf for him. The rabbits hopped about as best they could, making long, funny rabbit tracks in the soft snow. The children made a snowman, a snow house, a snow fort, and then had a snowball fight. The wind pushed light puffs of white from the branches, while the melting snow on rooftops drip, drip, dripped into long, shiny icicles. Each day, the sun grew stronger, and the snow melted. Big patches of soft, muddy ground showed through the snow in the fields. The sound of dripping, running water and the smell of wet brown earth filled the warm air. Now the branches were bare again, and gray pussy willows pushed out of their brown shells. Fence posts lost their dunce caps. The snowman's arms dropped off, and running water gurgled in gutters and rain pipes. The postman slowly delivered his mail so he could enjoy the bright sunshine. The farmer led his cows out in the barnyard for the first time since winter began. The policeman's cold was better, and he swung his club in the air as he walked in the park. His wife dug around under the lilac bush, looking for snowdrops and crocuses that grew there, while the rabbits spent all their time hopping about in the warm world above the ground. And the children watched for the first robin to tell them spring had really come. The end. Oh, I love that book so much. You know, it's not exactly an action book, but I love the repetition. I love the rhythm of it, and it's really funny because reading it now, I realize how much of my own writing rhythm has in common with that book. Janelle, it really makes me happy that you know this book. This is one of those books that I occasionally point out to people, and it's very rare to find anybody who knows about it. So I'm relieved to know that we're not the only family that read it. So anyway, that was White Snow, Bright Snow. Now, there are some questions coming up in the chat, and I want to scroll back and take a look and see, as I feel like there is a good question hiding in here that I saw. All right, so Janelle wants to know if I have started pre-planning my spring line yet. So, once upon a time, I would start planning the next season pretty much as soon as I got the last season live. So, you know, when the spring season went live, I get everything set up, and then, okay, we'd start planning for summer. One of my biggest goals has been to give myself more time to do that. Most of my seasonal collections are up for 2.5 to 3 months. That's not actually very long to do research and development for new scents. When I release a seasonal collection, I always bring some stuff back because I know that part of what you all love about what I do is being able to kind of sit tight and wait until your favorite thing comes back. So I'm always conscious of trying to bring things back on the regular so that people have things to look forward to. But I also know that y'all are suckers for new things. And I really like doing scent development. That's probably my favorite part out of all of the things that I have to do. And so I always make sure that I have a couple of new things every season. I can't do new things, like all new things every season, mainly because I have so many components. And I need to know that if I'm going to bring a component in, it's something that I can either use in multiple different scents or a single scent that's going to come back several times so that I can work through the component. So in the case of a normal year, up until this year, I was working about 6 months out. So I had the Christmas stuff for this year mostly planned out in June. I had a couple of things that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do because of component availability. And there were a couple of concepts for the new scents that I was still sort of on the fence about, and I wasn't 100% sure, but I had the general scheme planned out in June. This spring coming, that would be spring 2021, I have, I would say, about 80% planned. I've got the stuff for the January releases planned. I always do a little teeny tiny January collection. It's usually only 2 things. Basically, just to kind of kickstart the new year, I always like to do one blend that either is consistent through the whole year, or I just add to the general catalog as sort of, hey, this is the 2020 scent. This is the 2019 scent. This is the smell. This is what 2021 is going to smell like. And then I always try and do something kind of doofy and romantic and silly for Valentine's Day-ish. I don't do a lot of business for Valentine's Day. And that's totally fine with me. I don't like it as a holiday as much, but I respect the fact that people like to celebrate it and people might like something. And it's a good time for me to kind of get out of my comfort zone a little bit and work with the more foodie, chocolatey, gourmand scents. As I mentioned earlier, having been a pastry chef and having worked in food service, I am averse to smelling like food. I don't really like to smell like food very much, but I know that there are those of you out there who really love a good gourmand scent. So the January release is usually a time for me to like, all right, we're going to, January and spring. I try and do something sugary for spring and Easter. So this year I have, January's done. January's done and dusted. That was finished. I finished that in September, which was nice. It was nice to have that done. And spring is about 80% of the way there. I have a couple of secrets up my sleeve. I have some things that I would like to bring back, but again, I need to make sure that I'm going to have a consistent supply of some of the components. So yeah, that was kind of a non-answer, wasn't it? Sorry. Let's see. There is another question. All right, Alice and Jean, I did actually already talk about how my background as a trained pastry chef set me up for success. The long and the short is I learned how to suck it up and get stuff done and stay organized. Yeah, there you go. Jessica wants to know, how do you know which fragrance oil to use when it comes to different types and brands of the same note? So for example, I have 4 different leathers. Oh yeah. I have lots of variations on single notes. And it boils down to what else I'm putting them with and what I want those individual notes to do. So we'll talk about leather. I don't use leather a lot because there are a lot of really bad leather oils out there, and I've waded through a lot of them. But I have 2 that I use in my blends, and one of them is it's almost straight out of the bottle. It smells like cleaning fluid. It has like that it's that really fresh, like, brand new pair of shoes, brand new leather bag kind of, almost like not really turpentine-y, but like that slightly chemically oily, sharp leather. Excuse me. And then I also have a much softer and warmer and sweeter leather. That one I don't use very much because I find that it tends to disappear in things. It's nice to kind of underscore things, but it doesn't really hold up to be a standalone note particularly well. But the sharp one is the one that I use in Pumpkin Daddy and in The Englishman. And so it's really like, we'll talk about vanillas because I have, 7. There's 7 different vanillas that I use. Because it turns out that vanilla smells different to everybody. Everybody has a different idea of what vanilla needs to smell like. And sometimes I want a vanilla that smells like, just straight up vanilla and sugar and nothing else. Sometimes I want like a sticky vanilla frosting. Sometimes I want more of like a vanilla tobacco kind of direction. So it really all depends on what else I'm blending with and what kind of texture. I talk about texture and feel. You'll see me do this a lot when I talk about scent blending and different notes. So I have really low grade synesthesia, which basically means that my brain doesn't really differentiate between my different senses as clearly as it does for other people. You'll see it a lot where people will ascribe colors to numbers, or different music has different colors. For me, scents and sounds have an oral reaction for me. And so different smells will produce different sensations inside my mouth. Different music will put different sensations inside my mouth. There's a very specific riff in a Franz Ferdinand song that makes it feel like I have a lump of blue-green clay in the back of my mouth. It's kind of cool now that I know what it is. The first time it happened, it was really freaky, and I thought that there was something desperately wrong with me. But I tend to talk about scents in language that isn't about smell. It's about texture. It's about flavor. It's about sound sometimes. So when I'm blending scents, a lot of times what I'm looking for isn't necessarily what it just smells like, but I'm looking for all those other sensations that a smell will trigger for me, and hope desperately that some of that gets translated to other people who don't have this weird thing going on. So there's the long answer to that. Aren't you glad you asked? Mm-hmm. I think one of the one of the things that I have learned over the years is there are certain scents and certain textures in scents that are very difficult to get with commercial fragrance oils that I'm always on the hunt for. Sour isn't something that fragrance oil manufacturers do particularly well. The things that are marketed as sour, 9 times out of 10, they are sweet and sour. So it's like Sour Patch Kids, which is fine if I want to take, like a pomegranate oil that I have from one manufacturer and I want it to be more sour, more juicy. It's already kind of a sweet scent, so adding something sweet and sour to it works. But other times when I want just like super sour, puckery smell without the sugar, sometimes that's really hard for me to find. One of my big challenges that I'm still working on is the smell of heat. And what does hot smell like? Like chili peppers, that's not the heat that I'm talking about. Like what does like sunlight smell like, and how do I translate that? The one of the things really hamstringing me, you may have read in my blog posts over the years, I talked a little bit about the International Fragrance Review, IFRA. They are kind of a, not really a regulatory board. They do more suggestions rather than rules and regulations, but they go through the aroma chemicals every couple of years that fragrance manufacturers use. And they look at kind of the fresh data and research that's been done on these aroma chemicals and the detrimental effects that these aroma chemicals can have. Basically, IFRA looks to see, is your perfume causing you, is it going to give you cancer? And the long and the short is generally no, because you're not drinking it, you're not marinating yourself in it. But the bath and beauty industry, rightly so, has to be pretty cautious. So if a compound comes out with, there's new research that, oh, well, it might have, it might promote cancerous tendencies. We'll use that kind of weird couching. IFRA will recommend that aroma chemical either no longer be used at all or be used in really low amounts. And there's been a lot of review over the last couple of years of those aroma chemicals. And it's meant that some aroma chemicals that my suppliers were able to use when I first started soaping, they're not really using anymore. And unfortunately, a lot of them are those really lovely, warm, dry, like hot radiator smell kind of notes. So it's something I'm still working on. Anytime I see something from my suppliers that they come out with that looks promising, I'll get a little sample of it just to try. But, we're trying. Yeah, okay, Jessica, I see you and you're hot asphalt. And the trick is who wants to smell. I'm not saying nobody wants to smell like asphalt, but I'm thinking more like hot sand. Like that's the smell that I'm really trying to figure out. So anyway, there was another question in here. Oh, Janelle wanted to know about Hex on the Beach. So I'm not going to talk about Hex on the Beach on this feed because Hex on the Beach is not safe for work. At some point, probably in January, when things have calmed down after the holidays and I've got a little bit of downtime before spring really launches, I promise that I will write the full story of Hex on the Beach. For those of you who missed it, Hex on the Beach was a new scent for my Halloween collection this year, and it is bonfires on the beach and bear skin and shea butter. And the story that I wrote as part of the product description, yeah, it's I'm not saying that I'm on the verge of writing tentacle porn, but I'm kind of on the verge of writing a tentacle porn story for all of you. These are the depths of my love for you, and also the depths of my bizarre imagination. I don't know. The problem with working for yourself and by yourself, it's a double-edged sword, because there is no one here to tell you that you can't do something. And so on one hand, it's really great and it's really freeing. And you can kind of lean into the weird places that your mind gets to go. But there's also no one to tell you, maybe that's not a great idea. Maybe you should not do tentacle porn soap. But in this case, it's a good thing I did, because it sold really well this Halloween. And there you go, Lovecraft Country. Yeah, that I've only seen episode 1 of that. I'm really excited to get back to it in depth, but I don't watch a lot of television right now, as you can imagine, because it's been really busy. All right, so we are creeping up on 3 o'clock already. My God, we're burning through all of this. So, what would you guys like to talk about next? I mean, there's some good chat. And oh, Shelley, you're so sweet. Oh, you're so nice. Thank you so much. So while we're here, while I'm talking about not having time to watch television, hi, Amy. I want to take a minute and give you guys a more concrete idea of what the last year has meant for the business and what the last year has meant for me. And because I've talked about it a little bit, I think, and I think it's probably been pretty clear to anybody who's been paying attention that this has been a ridiculously busy year for me. But I want to kind of lay it out for you. One of the things that I'm a firm believer in is transparency, and particularly transparency as a maker to you, my audience, both just in terms of making sure that you guys know, what goes into what you're buying from me, and, the kind of person that you're buying things from, but also in terms of how a micro business really functions. Because I think not so much now, but particularly when I was on Etsy in the early years, there is sometimes this idea that when you make things and you sell things for a living at this micro level, like we do, that it's a little sort of like Instagrammy filtery, shuffling around. Like, I work in my house, from my house. I'm my own boss. I don't have set hours. I don't have anyone kind of standing over me, making me do things. And I think sometimes there's this idea that it's sort of like, I call it Oprah and bonbons. Like this idea that we can just sort of loaf around on the couch all day and watch TV and shuffle around in our house slippers, and the money just sort of magically appears, and that we are, that this is an easy way to make a living. And I'm here to tell you that that is not an easy way to make a living at all. There are much, much easier ways to make significantly more money than one can doing this sort of thing. But I want to at least sketch out, since I wanted to be able to share a screen with you today so that I could actually show you my spreadsheets and so that you could see like in real time actual real life numbers so that I can walk you through exactly kind of how I do things. We can't do that because stupid streaming platforms and whatnot. But if I do this again, which I think I would like to do this again, this is turning out to be kind of fun. I'll do a little bit more in depth with real numbers and spreadsheets and pie charts and crap like that. So, but just to give you guys a thumbnail sketch of what we're looking at, I'm going to click over to my my business dashboard here. So if you see me staring off into the middle distance, that would be why. So in a given year, we're going to look at last year. So last year, 2019 was a really good year. 2019 was pretty great. I have not had a down year in the 10 years that I've been doing this. When you start a business, the general idea is it takes you about 5 years to really be able to turn a profit. Now that's looking at a much more traditional business structure. This is not a traditional business structure. I'm going to say that first and foremost. The way that I run my business is not the way that anyone with any kind of business degree is going to tell you to run a business. Because I am a one-person shop and I don't have a lot of the overheads and a lot of the additional expenses, particularly for startup, that most businesses do. So I don't have a storefront. I don't have staff. I don't have those sort of expenses. But even factoring that in, my growth has been steady for the past 10 years. But there's been a real jump the last 3 years. Last year in 2019, I sold $55,000. Now that number, that is my gross income. So that is all of the money that y'all paid for shipping fees. This is all of the money that you paid in for sales tax, plus all of the money that you paid in for the actual soap. At the end of the day, I spent $38,000 in postage and cost of goods and liability insurance and whatnot. So 38? Yeah, 38. So we're going to do some, I wish I would have thought to have my tax paperwork up there. That would have been, yeah. So at the end of the day, my actual take-home pay worked out to give or take about $17,000. I think it was higher than that. I don't think I have my numbers right. This isn't big money. $55,000 sounds like a lot of money until you factor in the cost of actually running this business. Postage alone last year was over $10,000 just to print shipping labels and mail everything out to everyone. This year, this year's ridiculous, y'all. This year, right now, this is the middle of November, so we haven't hit Black Friday. We haven't hit the holiday sales yet. None of that. This weekend, I broke $85,000 in sales. That is terrifyingly close to $100,000 in sales. We're going to take a minute here because this is one woman and two hands and a basement. And a truly staggering uptick in business. Some of this is definitely as a result of COVID-19. And I want to talk about that for a minute because I have some survivor's guilt going on here. And let me explain what I mean by that. So this year has been catastrophically difficult for so many people and so many small businesses. And it has affected businesses sort of across the board in terms of what people offer and the fact that in-person shopping was shut down in many states, including ours for a while. The fact that in-person shows are all canceled, with the exception of a few. And so everyone is pivoting and ordering their things online. And I have been really fortunate in that my entire business structure has been set up online for a long time. That this was not something that I had to pivot and adjust to. This was just business as usual for me. This isn't anything new for my customers. Everything's kind of the same. You're still ordering from me online. Everybody's great. So we've got that. And then we've got the fact that everybody's washing their hands so much more than they were before, which is frankly a good thing. Y'all, wash your damn hands. So having a business for whom the pandemic has been, I'm not going to say a good thing, but having a business that directly provides a product that is desperately needed during a pandemic is a double-edged sword. Because on one hand, I am really glad that I am able to help you all stay clean and stay safe. And, have that kind of soap bar huffing moment of joy in an otherwise frazzled day. And it's also a relief to know that this is something that I was doing anyway. This isn't me seeing a need and capitalizing on it. This was me filling a need that's always been there. It's just something that people need a little bit more right now. So that's been good. But really, what has been difficult for me, and not in I wish it wasn't happening sort of thing, but in a more of a, how am I going to process this and how am I going to make this not be kind of gross and capitalist. I'm doing really well this year. This influx of business has meant that I have been able to upgrade equipment and upgrade work surfaces and invest in bulk amounts of components and supplies and packaging, and to kind of jump on availability of things that have been difficult to source. And the only reason I've been able to do those things is because of this influx of business as a result of this global pandemic. Am I making sense here? I'm really happy. I'm really excited. I'm really grateful. I'm also really profoundly aware of kind of this knife edge on which my success balances. It's only because of these very, very specific conditions and very, very specific needs that my business has that I've been able to do this. And so I've really been thinking hard about how do I make the most of this situation, not just for myself, but for other people. So I've been working really hard to make sure that I'm able to keep up with this influx of business. I'm conscious of the fact that it's difficult to get stuff for people right now. And I understand that stress, like, oh, I want a thing. And the thing that you want, you can't get because it's sold out currently, or it's on back order or whatever. You know, I understand it's a small stress, but it's a stress that I can, if I work and I organize myself a little bit, it's a stress that you don't have to worry about from me, if you follow. So keeping things restocked and restocking things quickly when they do sell out has been really important to me this year. And I've been able to do it because of this influx of sales and this influx of finances, so that I'm able to stock up on things. The other thing that I've really been thinking hard about is who else in my room, as it is, who does not have this kind of flexibility, who isn't kind of surfing the top of the wave right now. So I'm not going to mention names because we don't do that here, but I have a handful of people in my life, both personally and professionally, who have not been able to ride this as seamlessly as I have been able to. And so I have made a point of sharing some of this financial success with them. It's not charity. That's not what we're talking about here. This is sharing what I have with other people who I think are doing really important work. And I want you all to know how meaningful that is to be able to do that at this point in my life. I've always believed very deeply in helping other people, but I haven't been able to financially help people before because, that's not the kind of work that I've ever done. So to be able to get to this point in my life where I can see a need and respond to it in an immediate and actually like productively and useful way, not just in a, kind of thoughts and prayers sort of way, has been really amazing. And I know it's made a significant difference to some people. And so I want to thank you all for the ability to do that. Also, on a side note, this year is also enabling me to see the end to my debt personally, which is amazing. I've talked about it before on my personal and my business pages, but I'm going to pimp it again. Undebt It is, and I'll link to it in the bottom when we're done, has been an invaluable resource in being able to get a handle on my personal debt and be able to plan a way to pay it down in a way that isn't just kind of encouraging me to incur more debt, because it's really easy to throw all the money that you have in a month against your debt and then an expense comes up, and then you have to put something right back on the credit card again because you gave all your money to the credit card. You know what I'm talking about. Uh, so yeah, I've been able to do that, which has been just, I'm not going to kill you. It's transformative. I don't have any student loan debt. I dropped out of college. So it turns out when you drop out of college, you don't incur a whole lot of student loan debt. And when I went back to trade school, it was a small enough amount that I was able to pay it off reasonably quickly and reasonably painlessly. But, you know, credit card debt, man, let's be real. It sneaks up on you. And I have both a business credit card and I have a personal credit card. And it's really easy to put stuff on a credit card when you don't have the cash for it because you're a productive adult, you're pulling in a paycheck. Oh, I'll just pay it off. And no matter what I did, no matter how good I was about paying it every month, I still got myself to the point where it was more than I wanted. It was over $10,000 cumulatively. And it just felt like something that I was never really going to be able to dig myself out from under because I was never going to have the kind of income that would allow me to get ahead of it. This year has changed all of that. If it weren't for this year, I would have eventually been debt-free, but it would have taken a lot longer. So I want to thank you guys for this. It's been a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. My rule is I don't work evenings and I don't work weekends, and I'm still not doing that for the most part. I've had a couple of evening labeling sessions, and I've popped down here for a couple hours here and there on the weekends the last couple of weeks just to do dishes and, you know, boring stuff that I'm too tired to do at the end of the day. But the amount of physical labor that has been part of my work this year, y'all are literally kicking my butt. And it's, you know, it's a good kind of butt kicking though. And it is such a joy and an honor to have work to do in our situation as it stands currently. It's a joy to have work that both I have control over and that provides something that I can see being really necessary and beneficial, even if it's in kind of a superfluous sort of way, because nobody needs fancy soap, right? But having fancy soap is such a small and doable indulgence, even in the best of times. But I think right now, being able to supply little treats like this to all of you as little tiny morale boosters, I want you to know that I know how important this is. And I take my work really seriously for you guys. And I'm so delighted and so touched and so honored to still be able to do this 10 years later and to be able to see the next 10 years of this. I'm 47 right now. I have a solid 20 more years before I can even think of retiring. And it is amazing to be able to look ahead 20 years and think to myself, you know, I could do this. I could do this for another 20 years. That would be pretty right on with me. So I want to thank you guys for making that a dream that seems even remotely possible. So, all right, it is almost 3:15. I'm going to take another quick break just to rest my voice a little bit, run upstairs, stretch my legs. when I come back, what do you want to talk about? I get the impression that I know, I actually, no, I do know what I want to talk about. Um, we'll talk about scent development a little bit because I think that's one of the things that I get the most questions about is how I come up with things. Um, so yeah, we'll talk a little bit about kind of the nuts and bolts of scent development, if that's cool with you guys. And I don't know, maybe I'll read you another story. Tough to say. All right, guys. Let's say 3:30. I'll be back. Okay, and then we'll have another half hour before I wrap things up at 4. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you in a couple minutes. All right. And we're back in a minute. A minute to get myself organized here. All right, everybody. We're ready for one last half hour of me yammering on. Excellent. I'm going to scroll back here through the comments a little bit and see if I missed anybody. I'm glad that I'm making sense. Thank you so much. I think that's the only thing that I'm not enjoying about the live stream format here is I don't get a whole lot of energy back. So it's hard sometimes to feel like I'm actually putting words together in the right direction. And yeah. Yeah, Shelly, I get it. Yeah. All that Zoom. And I know that you're nodding. I do. You're nodding in my heart. That's it. All right. So we're going to talk about scent development, probably for the rest of the time here, unless I run out of things to say or unless something else comes up. So yeah, scent. The problem talking about scent development is I don't have one particular way that I do things. There are a lot of different directions that I come from when I'm doing scent development. A lot of times it will be sparked by the seasonal releases. So we talked earlier about how I like to bring back, existing scents to a certain extent for each seasonal, but then I like to bring in 2 more or 3 more sometimes, depending, to supplement those. So a lot of times the first place I'll start with is what do I have and what is missing from the room, if you will. So I like to make sure that I have a pretty good array of options in a seasonal release. So I try to make sure that there's always something fruity and fresh, something kind of more sweet, maybe a little foodie or chocolatey or something like that. I try to make sure there's at least one masculine leaning, if not more, because I know that's a realm that I think gets overlooked a lot in kind of indie bath and body, or the more kind of what we would associate with the more masculine sense. I really, I love a good atmospheric. I like including at least one blend that smells less like a thing and more like a place or a moment, if that makes any sense. And then I try and do something floral. I will say that the florals, out of all of the things that I do, the floral ones are the ones that always sell the least. And I think some of that is because florals are difficult for a lot of people. And I think if you're coming into kind of the more indie world, it's because the commercial stuff isn't working for you. And the commercial stuff is very frequently very floral. So chances are, if you're a floral lover, you're probably finding stuff that, is commercially made and commercially available, that's scratching your itch. I also, out of all of them, gourmands are difficult for me. Florals are really, really, really hard for me sometimes. A lot of the traditional floral notes are, if not full-blown migraine triggers, at least headache triggers for me. So doing stuff that's really super flowery and floral is physically difficult for me to do. That being said, I've been doing this for long enough that I'm starting to figure out how to do florals without them actually being floral. You know what I mean? A really good example is last year's Snowbird. That began life as gardenia and carnation blend that I just sort of threw together as an extra because I had some stuff sitting around. Instant migraine trigger, totally not something I could work with long term, but it sparked the idea of something like that sort of combination of creamy, spicy, and traditional white floral. So I very often will approach florals kind of from the back direction. But sometimes I go in swinging. Roses in the Snow is a really good example of that. I have a lot of emotional baggage about rose as a scent. When I was in elementary school, a friend of mine's mom was an Avon representative, and she used to give me like boxes full of like, her, the unused samples and like all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that she gave me was this little quilted glass bottle of rose eau de toilette with a little pink rose on the lid. And it was just a really cool bottle. Like, I didn't care much about what it smelled like, but just like the texture on the glass was really great. And little me was like super obsessed with it. And as a kid, you're not really thinking consequences per se. And I was hanging out in my bedroom and I was looking at it, and my mom very specifically said, "Don't play with that on the bed. You're going to spill it." And 7, 8-year-old me, whatever, didn't hear that at all. Just whoosh. And naturally, of course, reader, we know what happens. Lid came off. 2 ounces of rose eau de toilette all over my bedspread. And so Mom was mad, as she had every right to be. We washed my bedspread a couple of times, and then, as I remember it, she was like, "Well, you got to live with it because I told you not to, and you spilt it anyway." And I had a very pink shag, like glittery shag carpet. This was like 70s, 80s in my room. And the combination of like the pink shag carpet and then this bedspread that reeked of rose eau de toilette for months afterwards just put me off rose smells entirely. Fast forward umpteen years, I realize as a soap maker, I need to get over this. And so Roses in the Snow was basically me facing down Rose and saying, all right, we have to learn to work together. So how can I make a thing that smells like Rose, but is enough not like Rose that I'm not going to have, glittery pink flashbacks from it. So sometimes I go about it that way. I pick a note to really start with. Like, I want to do something with pomegranate. I want to do something with rose. I want to do something with, leather, and start kind of mentally walking around that note and approaching it from different directions and different feels. We talked about my synesthesia earlier, and having kind of textural associations with scents, among other things. So I think a lot about like, what would this note smell like if it were crunchier? what if, you know, how would I make this more like sticky and jammy? How would I make this more like dry and papery? So a lot of it is kind of toying around with that. Something else that I've been working a lot with the last couple of years that I've really been enjoying is starting with a color and thinking, what would that color smell like? You guys remember pink from year before last spring, I believe it was. That was very much, that started off as kind of me fangirling at Gail Simone, who's a comic book artist. She did this incredible horror series called Clean Room. If you don't mind gore and you want really spectacular comic writing, Clean Room is freaking amazing. Her main protagonist is this woman named Astrid, and not protagonist, antagonist. It's this woman named Astrid, and she's like this like picture perfect, like dressed to the nines, like makeup on point, you know, arch villain. And her signature color that she wears is pink. And I was thinking about kind of that poisonous, like a poisonous pink. Like it's pink and it's girly, but it will also kill you. So pink, the blend, started off life as kind of perfume fanfic for Astrid. And I leaned into like that kind of like girly pink idea of like strawberry and cream and lilac-y and girly pink stuff. And then I have this amazing almond note that depending on what the dilution is within the blend, sometimes it just sort of smells like almond cookies, and sometimes it sort of smells like cyanide. So I played around with that a lot. Oh, good. It's a relief to know that I'm not the only one who has eau de toilette, rose eau de toilette. Flashbacks. Oh my goodness. Yeah, rose is it's one of those scents that I think people really have deep associations with. And some of that is that cultural thing of like who wore rose and wore it heavily. You know, it was women of a certain age in American culture. And depending on your relationship that you had with those women, that will change how you think about that smell. And that's one of the things that I really love about the work that I do, is kind of really pushing into that emotional connection that people have with particular smells, and figuring out ways to use a particular smell as kind of emotional shorthand to express an emotion or to trigger an emotion that I want to come out of a particular thing. It's difficult because everybody has different emotional associations with different smells. So somebody may smell Lily of the Valley and be like, it smells like tissue paper, whatever. I don't like that. It's not my thing. For other people, myself included, Lily of the Valley, that was my grandma's scent. And that's a deeply emotional scent. So, you know, for me, that's like bringing out the heavy guns into a blend. So it's always interesting to me kind of when that works, you know, and when the intended effect that I have really comes to bear. There's one that I do for the spring. I'll do it again this year, called Find the River. And it's named after a song by REM. And this is one of those like multi-level blends. So the song lyrics list out bergamot, vetiver, rose of hay, coriander stem, all these great things. And so on one hand, it's a pretty straightforward, like, here's a recipe for something that smells away. But REM as a band, and particularly that album, that came out in a time of my life where I was at college and really tight friends with a truly amazing woman. There was a lot of emotional crap going on over kind of the surrounding years that was super emotionally fraught for me. So that song has an emotional level for me. And then we're going to double down on the fact that this beautiful woman who I love so dearly passed away. And so then the song starts to mean different things for me, as well as being the soundtrack to this incredible year of college. But it also brings up all this emotional stuff. So Find the River, the blend, was my really trying to work through that sense of loss, but also that sense of kind of just joy and fullness of remembering what it was like while she was alive. And taking that very literal listing of different smells from the lyrics and including them in the blend, but then also building on kind of that bittersweet kind of sensation, turning it into a bittersweet smell, and playing around with that idea of kind of, death and rebirth and carrying on, despite losses. It's a banger. I joke that if I ever write kind of my soap maker's memoirs, it's going to be titled something along the lines of Standing in a Parking Lot Crying Over a Bar of Soap, because that's what happened with Find the River. We went from within 30 seconds from introductions and talking about things to actively crying over people that we lost in the middle of a parking lot, in the middle of a show. Yeah, it was one of the hardest, but also one of the best moments in the work that I've done, is having that kind of emotional connection come through. So, something that has really helped me think about how to kind of construct a scent is my work when I was a pastry chef. Alice and Jean, if you're still on, we'll talk about this a little bit more. So back when I was a pastry chef, I kept a notebook, still have it. And after I had been doing recipe development for a while and just kind of, off the cuffing it, I thought, I need a slightly more organized way of doing this, because I needed to come up with, a seasonal menu every couple of weeks. I wanted just kind of a brain dump about, that particular season, what was in season, what textures seemed to fit with that season, what alternate flavors would fit with that season. So I'm sure you can't see it because my camera is absolutely garbage. But over here on this page is basically an itemized list of, I went through and listed all of the fruits and fruit adjacent things that would be coming into season. Really big fan of seasonal cooking and using seasonal produce, both professionally and now just, cooking for myself at home. I don't like using things that are out of season. But that's a whole other discussion about food miles and whatever. But yeah, so I started with a list of like what is naturally available, what is easily available, what's going to be at its absolute best at this time. And then I made a list of kind of other flavors that really speak to that time of year. In some cases, it's, what herbs and flowers are coming into season that time of year. Other times it's like socially and culturally, what kind of flavors do we see a lot coming into that season? And then I made a list of like textures, like, what kind of textures do we crave at different times of year? Because sometimes, in the deep winter, soft, pasty, warm, oatmeal-y type things we crave. That's what what feels really good. Whereas, in the summer, things that are, crisp and light and crunchy and icy and that sort of thing. So the work that I did as a pastry chef, figuring out how to build composed desserts of all sorts of different elements to, create this one thing, really is informing my work as a scent blender and as a soaper. So that's very much how I think about blending scents, because I'm always looking for multiple textures within a scent, and always looking for some kind of unexpected contrast. When I was doing plated desserts in particular, I was always looking for, like, is there something like unexpectedly crunchy or crisp or light that I can stick in here? Is there something like, a little bitter, a little sour, a little tannic, a little unexpected, a little weird that I can, just drizzle over the top or hide in the middle of something, just so that it's no longer just like, oh, it's chocolate cake. I like chocolate cake, but it's, it's chocolate cake with like this extra little like right at the end that keeps it interesting, that keeps it different, and that differentiates it from other chocolate cakes that you have had. So when it comes to scent blending, very frequently I'll have the body of the scent put together. And then one of the last things that I will do is find that little hook to go in at the end. Very often it's something, it's a little bit of, there's a gunpowder note that I use a lot. I hide it in a lot of things that I do. It's smoky, but also a little bit sulfury, which sounds terrible, but it's really good at deepening scents, kind of anchoring them a little bit and knocking the sweetness out of things a little. I use non-food scents in my foodie flavors sometimes to do that same thing, to keep them from being really super cloying. Or I'll use a different kind of foodie scent. Goat that I did for the weenies and that I've carried over a little bit into the winter this year is a really good example of that. We needed something like super escapist, and I was thinking a lot about that idea of like going and hiding in your car, because you've been locked in the house with everybody for months and months and months, and maybe you just like sneak out and you get like a super frappuccino thing at the drive-thru, and you just sit in your car for 5 minutes so that you can just have that like sugary indulgent rush and that moment of quiet. But when I made the blend originally, it was all like the coffees and the sugars and the sweet creams and whatnot, and it was really good, but it wasn't very interesting. So I really just started rummaging through my enormous shelf of fragrance oils and pulling stuff out that some of which seemed like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's also foodie, but different. And I pulled out a lot of things that really made no sense just in case. Because sometimes it will surprise you what a blend needs. You'll think that a blend just needs something extra sweet at the end, but just for kicks and giggles, I'll try it with something really bitter just to see what that does. And in this case, the magic ingredient was a blackberry scone fragrance oil that out of the bottle is really not very interesting. It's just kind of bakery blackberry. But when you put it alongside all the caramel and coffee notes, all of a sudden the blackberry is just like, and so it's a question of, really just opening a lot of things, smelling a lot of things, and not being afraid to try things that sound weird. Sleepy Lagoon is a really good example of trying things that sound weird. That was me trying to break myself on pineapple. I'm not a pineapple person. I don't know why you would want to really smell like pineapple. I hear it's something that people like. And one of my suppliers was closing out a pineapple and cilantro blend. I'm like, well, that sounds weird. We'll give that a try. So I bought a pound of that unsmelled, which is a little risky because sometimes you end up with a pound of stuff that you just really hate and you can't do a damn thing with. But I took a flyer on this one. And when it arrived, I could see what they were trying to do. They were trying to do like a crisp, green, herby, like non-pina colada pineapple, but it was really just sort of thin and boring. So I started just playing around with other notes to see what I could tease out of that pineapple in order to make it better than what it was when it arrived. And that's, it's really just it's a process of exploration and a process of dorking around and seeing what works and not being afraid to take risks. And one of the things that I'm most thankful about is having a bunch of you who are also in this game with me. And when I put things up that I say, it smells like, a sleepy hammock and pineapples and wet grass and swamp milkweed, you're like, yeah, okay, I don't know what that smells like, but we'll give it a try. I'm so appreciative that I have found a bunch of you who are willing to kind of take that walk with me and take some risks and try some new things, even if they sound a little weird, just to see where that takes you. So yeah, I really appreciate that. I really do. Oh, kids, look, it's almost 4:00. Look what we did. We did a whole day, and I've still got like stacks and stacks of things that we could have talked about. So I guess this means that we're going to do this more often. I don't know. What do you think? I think next time I do it, I will do it on a different platform. Again, because like I said, I really do want to do, I wanted to do some screen share so that I could walk you through. I've got some great albums of photographs that I've taken throughout the years. So I thought maybe we could play a game of name that Paintbox Soapworks OG, stuff that you haven't seen for a really long time. We can all have a really good laugh at how atrocious my product photography was back in the day. Which is good. I don't know if you all can hear this. You probably can't hear this, but my cat is crying for me at the top of the stairs because she hears me down here talking to all of you, and she desperately does not want to be left out. She is the sweetest thing. Oh my God. She's also a pain in the butt. Yeah, here she comes. So we'll see if she comes over to see. If she comes over to see me, I'll lift her up so that you guys can say hello. You coming? Come on. I don't think we're coming. I think she's just toying with me. She's a cutie. Well, everybody, this has been fantastic. It is not the same as seeing you all in person and giving you all hugs and shoving your noses in little jars of soap and making you smell things. But it's still pretty great, I have to say. So I think we're going to do this more often. I hope that all of you are well. I hope that you are all feeling, if not safe and settled, at least safe-ish and settled-ish. I hope that you have something special planned for yourself for Thanksgiving. Even if it's just, putting your orange juice in a fancy glass. Try and do something special for yourself over this weekend and this week to come. And I know we can't be with all of the people that we want to be with this time of year, but things like this help us feel less disconnected, I think, and help it feel less like this is going to last forever. Oh, are you coming? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here, you wiener. Come here. Whoa. There she is. Hi, buddy. Who's up here? Want to say hi? This is Stubbs, everybody. If you follow me on Instagram. Hi. Being so good. Buddy. Yeah, okay. All right. I'm going to pay for that later. Anyway, if you want more cat pictures, go over to my Instagram feed because there's plenty of cat pictures there for her, because what else is Instagram for if not taking pictures of your cat? Yes, she is like, what the hell, Shelly? For real. Yeah, she's not going to appreciate that. But she hasn't run away either, so I guess I'm not... Yeah. How do I keep cat fur out of my workspace? I'll be honest with you, Jessica, she doesn't come down here very often. And when she does, she's over here in my desk area, sitting on my rug or stealing my chair. She does not get up on the table. She doesn't go explore the shelves. She's a really well-behaved cat that way, and I'm knocking on every piece of wood possible. But yeah, all things considered, this could have been a much harder transition because I don't have a door to the basement. So she can come down here whenever she wants. But yeah, she's done really well, kind of keeping out of my space and not getting underfoot. So yes, I know it's the content you've all been waiting for, Allison Jean. I know. You're only here for the cats. It's fine. I don't mind. Anyway, folks, thank you so much. I love you all to pieces. Take care of yourselves. Keep in touch. I put up a playlist on my channel of some other stuff that I've been doing over the years. I've got 2 videos that I did with my friend Sarah Mock. One about how to succeed on Etsy and one on how to get the fuck out of Etsy. So those are always interesting. And then I put up a video of the presentation I did for the Pechacucha, which is the 20 by 20 slides, 20 seconds each format that we do here in the city under the banner York Crafted. Did that talk a couple of years ago, but really proud of that one. A lot of information in very little time. And yeah, so take a look at those things. I have some video playlists that I put together of songs that have influenced Paintbox Soapworks over the years. There's my Paintbox Soapworks Weenie playlist if you like spooky songs. All my yoga mixes are on there. So you want to know what I do yoga too. They're on there too. But yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much. Take care of yourselves. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. Keep me in mind. Keep in touch. Holler at me if you have questions, if you have needs, if you have concerns. And stay tuned for the January release, because the 2021 January blend is really freaking special. Sarah in Georgia, you're going to want to tune in on this one, because I think it's going to be right up your alley, among other things. But it's a very personal blend for me, and yeah, I'm really proud of it, and I cannot wait to share it with you. Can't wait to share 2021 with you either. So anyway, I love you guys. Take care of yourselves. I'll have this video up on my YouTube page for reviewing, so you can take a look at it whenever you like. And I'll keep you posted when we do the next one. All right. Love you. Bye.